Okay, this is Mick Sheridan. He's an upholsterer, and I've asked him to show me how to re-stretch with recycled canvas using a recycled canvas. Re-stretch this, but with a hole in it. This canvas has got a hole in it, so I want to stretch the canvas through the hole so that the canvas ends up with a hole in it. So he's going to show me how to do that.
Oh, we're going to try and work it out. Right, ready? So this is a bit of canvas that came off the back of a chair, and I just need to make sure that I've got enough to go all the way round, because we're going to pull it tight like so. So as long as I've got this to here, that'll do.
And just to say, this canvas has come off a chair.
And also, I don't normally upholster anything with a hole in it, so this is a bit experimental. I'm going to work out, try and work out the best way to do it. So what I think is, we're going to, it's a bit dirty, this canvas, but it doesn't matter for this. So it is going to be stretched over like so eventually, but we're going to have to work out a way to pull the canvas to add a collar, I think, around this recess here. So if I mark where that will go, I'm just going to draw a line. Again, if I were doing this, I don't know, on a chair or something, would you have a chair with a hole in it? There kind of are. There are a few ways to do it, but I'm going to try to do it sewing it, but I'm going to try to do it in such a way that you can see it. So this might not be like perfectly finished. So what I need to do is to get access scissors into here. So I need to have a seam. So effectively what I've got is four bits here where...
Before you cut that, can you just lift it vertically so we can see what you've drawn?
That way?
Yeah.
So what I'm planning is to cut into here, to take out this square, and then cut into the corners, leaving these four areas as seams, so that I can then stitch a collar inside this and pull it through. So I'm going to go round the outside. That's why I'm drawing it on. If I were, you know, I guess ideally you would do it, you know, with chalk or something that you could rub off, so you wouldn't see it. But I just, for the sake of the...
But I'm going to paint onto this surface later on, so it doesn't matter what marks are left behind.
So if you just did that, now effectively what we could do is just, you can see now, what we could do is just pin that back. So just staple that back in there.
Yeah.
And then I can staple a collar into there.
Yeah, yes.
Okay,
yes.
But I don't want to do that because these corners are pretty vulnerable. Because it's a square, you've got this angle, 90-degree angle in there, and that point there, it's hard to explain, but if I were to put in a piece and to staple it in, it's going to be difficult. You're going to have too much excess. It's really difficult to explain this, but there's going to be too much excess inside, and it's not going to be a clean finish.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you want the cleanest finish you can get.
Yeah.
So in that, to try to achieve that, I'm going to have a go at sewing around there.
And
so,
you will explain what a collar is.
Yeah, I will. I will. I mean, I would call it a collar, but it's similar to it. It's from clothing, really. So I have to measure this now to make sure that the collar is going to be big enough. So we've got 5 centimetres there. So 4 times round is going to be, all 4 sides is going to be 20. So if we make it 25, then that gives us plenty of excess to play with. And then I've got to measure this area here, because
Okay.
once the collar, the seam should be, I mean in this case we'll have 10 millimeters. Normally I'd have 15 millimeters, but I don't really want all that inside there. So now what I'm going to do, so I need a 10 millimeter seam that will be like so, and then I need another 4, let's say 5 centimeters, 50 millimeters of the collar to pull it in.
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
I don't know what's going to happen this side because this is beveled, and that might actually have a bearing on this. I'm not sure. I can't imagine. So it's an experiment. We've got to try.
Absolutely.
So I need 25 by 5 in centimeters. So if we say, let's just make it roughly, this is not straight. So there's going to be 25 there.
And as you can see, one of the benefits of working in Mick's workshop is the layout that you've got. A lot of the tools here, and obviously he's got a sewing machine, he's got the counters to work on, he's got the right scissors, he's got sharp scissors. That all helps.
Okay, so that's enough. So the plan is to sew this on here, no, not like that, sew it to that line, and then fold it back inside. Okay.
Right. Okay.
But then we're going to have to cut this, so I don't actually know
Yeah.
what's going to happen. I would quite often use a collar when on a chair. I would use it regularly to get round a 90-degree corner. Okay, on a but a corner like so.
Yeah.
So
They won't be able to see that.
oh yeah, sorry, a corner like so. So that if that corner there, how do I do this? You're going to have this excess here. To remove this excess, I would sew a collar on there, so it would sit around there like so.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it takes away that
Yes.
excess, but you do get a sewn line all the way around.
Yeah. Okay.
But it enables you to do it without
Yes. Without
having
which
this.
all the majority of canvases
Canvases
have that folded corner.
There's loads of ways to fold canvas. The best way for an upholsterer would be like so,
Yeah.
and then you would hand stitch down that edge.
Yeah,
But I mean, we'll come to that if that comes up. So
what happens when you fold this backwards inside? What happens when they come to a corner? Would you then have a fold in there?
well, I've got to work that out.
Okay.
Because if it were a larger area, it would actually be a lot easier, because
Yeah.
what I can then do, there's going to be excess in the corners,
Yes.
but I don't know how easy it's going to be to chop that out with such a tight angle.
Yes.
And they're being forced. So that's why this is an experiment.
Yeah. Okay.
If this were a circle and straight, a tube effectively, I'd know it was going to work, but I've never done it with a square lathe.
Okay.
So we'll
you're
see.
learning too.
Yeah, so should we go?
That's quite good. Okay,
go to the
so
sewing
we're now
machine.
going to go to the sewing machine. I'm just going to stop the video here. Okay, so here we are at the sewing machine. Mick's about to just sew one side.
So I'm going into the corner, right? You can't see it, but under here is my sew line, and I'm just sort of doing it by eye. I have to turn this on actually. Don't know if you can see it all right, but let's have a go. So I'll just sew down to about where my finger is. Should have marked it. Let's have a look.
And we're
There.
sewing in black thread here, just so you can see what's going on.
Now I'm going to cut it
And also the fact that I'm
into there.
painting on it, so it doesn't matter.
We are going through that side. How's it going to come through there? Oh God, I don't think it's going to work. Right, so I've sewn all the way along. Those are the 4 triangular sections that I cut out, and that I've sewn along the line that I marked earlier. So I'm showing you this inside out. You can see we used black thread so that you could see it, and you can see it's all the way around. So inside I've got all this excess. This is the collar that I've put in. Okay, so now I'm going to turn it the other way And that's what it's going to look like. You can see it's a bit clunky. If this were a professional job, this is only a prototype, so we'd have to kind of refine it. It's very fiddly as well, it's quite small. So then we're going to put it through. So we'll pull this collar through the hole, and hopefully it'll sit there without too much excess inside. We'll have to trim, in fact I'm going to trim first some of the excess off. So on this corner is where we're going to have to join it. Now I could join it on the sewing machine like so, but I don't want to do that. I want to just do it kind of physically do it with a staple gun as I cover this. So if I just trim out, this is one excess. So I've just got to make sure I don't go past the corner. That will just help to pull it through, because this is just going to get in the way. So basically poke that through. You get the general idea. So that is then going to be pulled through inside. So first of all, I've got to somehow temporarily, I think, secure this around the edges, right? So I'm just going to put some temporary staples in there to I'm just going to put them in the side.
Why are you doing that?
Okay, when you upholster anything, you've got to tighten your fabric, and you use the points of the compass. So if I tighten it here, say, and here, basically, if I tighten the inside and then tighten this here and go round, we're going to end up with excess. So we've got to make sure that it is tight before pulling this through.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
So I'm just going to put a temporary. These are coming out. All right. So I just put them side. I don't fire them fully in. I let them stick out like that, so they're easy to pull out.
Okay, that's a good tip.
That's a temporary staple.
So they don't leave. It doesn't necessarily leave holes in the canvas then.
Not really. I mean, you would see it. And again, you know, if this was something that you're not going to paint, this would be a different. You know, I'd go about it differently.
Yeah. Okay.
But you know, we're just prototyping now, so we don't really mind trying to show the process.
So you staple each side.
Yeah. So
In the
basically, if I was teaching upholstery, I'd be saying you go north, south, east, and west. But I don't know what order I did that in. But I always do the across one.
Yeah.
So I've already done these two, and now I'm doing these two. Do you see? I didn't go 1, 2, 3, 4. That won't work because the fabric will follow you around. You just put it fairly tight. It'll just give me a chance to now pull this in a bit more, and we'll see what sort of a, like I said, because this is a beveled edge, if this inside here was flush with the top here, we would have a straight edge and I could just cut these corners and fold it in. But as it is, it's slightly shallower, so this section inside is shallower than this.
Yeah.
Right, so it's just posing another slight issue.
Which is an issue that you would always have because you're using recycled materials. You know, if you're repurposing something, which we're not doing, we're not repurposing this, but we are reusing a canvas here. And it's because of the flatness of the back that we're using the back rather than the front. So you're always going to come across issues, but you just have to work them out. Yeah,
like if we were doing this the other way round, we would have to then sew these 4 sections and cut out here, because you've got that, basically you've got to follow that shape, which is again doable, but it's just complicated. So it was easier to do it flat like this. That was the idea. So in order to tighten this, what I'm going to do is just go, see, I've got this excess here, I'm going to cut into the corners a little bit.
Okay.
So this is my corner here where it's going to end. And if I do this one and that one, I don't know if you saw what I did there. So that gives me the chance to pull that straight, see? So we've got a tight-ish edge here and tight there. So we can
and you're going to
staple that one. So I'll just put that one and that one.
And because we're not going to see the back side of the canvas, it doesn't matter that we are stapling it fully.
I'm not sure about the, you know, this is the thread where I just didn't catch it. It was such a fiddly process to do this. The sewing machine foot was having difficulty sewing such a tight angle on such a small area.
Yeah.
So if it were a bigger area, I would have been able to snip it and get a much better, you know, without these bits here. I mean, just, you know, we can snip
Just
these
snip
off.
them off.
They're, you know, it's all right, but it's not.
I mean, the
It's not
issue
great.
would be a much more serious if it was being used in any way for a chair or something that's being.
Well, this is how I'm
But this is
thinking,
not gonna
because
be
I'm not, you know, that's
moved
I'm
or
working. I'm working
so
for
there's
customers
yeah.
who are expecting it to be, you know, not perfect, but they're expecting it to be
Well, they were expecting to
a
sit on it
professional
hundreds of
job,
thousands
and they
of
don't
times,
want to
don't
see
they?
like bits of black thread sticking out
Yeah.
and so on. Okay, now ideally, I would do this one next. Yes, I will. So I've cut that one, but I'm not going to staple this one because I want to do the opposite one. Otherwise, I'm going back on my own.
Yeah. Most people who have ever stretched a canvas previously will understand.
Will know
this
that, yeah,
concept
yeah,
of
I've no
working
doubt.
Opposites.
No doubt. So like that, we'll put a couple of staples in there. See that all right?
And you've got a pneumatic, is that the right word?
Yeah.
Stapler
Yeah, it's
here,
with an air compressor.
But you know, you can use a normal
any staple gun, you can use
staple
tacks,
gun.
you can use anything, can't you? Whatever
Yeah.
you could glue
I've
it.
even seen people, yeah, I was
You
going to
can glue
say,
it.
I've having watched upholstery programs with you, I've seen people glue upholstery in.
Right,
place.
so this corner, this is the
So
last
this is
one.
the last
This is the
corner,
last
yeah.
one. So we've got one, you can see that I've overlapped. Okay?
Yeah.
So I snipped into this corner,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to staple that. And then I've snipped into the other corner,
Yeah.
and I'll staple that.
Yeah. And so this is where you deal with the excess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got quite a bit in there, which I
Yeah.
left deliberately. I would have gone a bit tighter,
Yeah.
but I'm going to cut it out now. So I'm turning it over, and I'm just going to snip a little bit more. And this is probably where experience comes in, isn't it?
I absolutely.
I just
you
know,
how would you
I just know how to do that. But effectively, you don't even need to do it. You don't, we could just turn it in. It's just that it will sit underneath. You need to always, upholsterers, they don't want excess, fullness it's called. You don't want fullness. Sorry. So now I'm going to attempt, so fiddly,
I don't like to make it easy for you.
to turn this. You never made anything easy for me. Right, I'm going to have to use something. I'll use this brad oil, I don't know if this will work. It's not going to work. Where's this? I'll use this as a regulator. It's an upholstery tool, and I'm just going to poke that bit out of the way. Maybe you can see what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to turn that in.
You can turn it towards us. I don't know whether you can, but
I'm trying to turn that in there. I'm trying to keep it on camera. Turn that bit under there. Now I should be able to.
so it is just about
Wrap
sort of
that
fiddling
around.
it into place.
Yeah, it's not a very good. You can see that that's not a very clean corner yet.
Yeah.
Whether I can get it clean, because we've got quite a bit of excess inside here that
Yeah.
had I not stapled it down, I perhaps could re-trim. What I want to do, you know,
As you said, this is a prototype, so we are
with a little
working
bit of
out
fiddling,
the
with a
next
little
one
bit of
we
fiddling.
do, or I do.
Yeah, actually, I think
Um,
it's probably better to go a collar, to stitch the collar into a square. That is to join, like in how I would make a box cushion.
Yes.
So to stitch a join before
Yeah.
folding this in, because there's an excess there. I don't know if you can see that on the camera.
Yeah, I can see.
See, it's kind of lumpy there.
Yeah.
That's because underneath we've got this.
Yeah.
So I need to keep taking this out and trimming all that.
Yeah.
Trimming it and trimming it until we get.
So we've got a digger going by. We live in the middle of the countryside. It's tractors and diggers, 24 hours a day.
So the more excess I take out, I'm not going to worry too much about it in this case.
If you know, just explain the theory
basically,
to us, then that,
you know,
that's
we want
enough.
a tidier corner in there, and it's quite possible to get one.
Yeah.
But like I said, this is a pretty fiddly little canvas to do.
It's probably highly unlikely that I would
do this
so small, but
okay, so that's nearly there, and you can see like this whole process is a bit clunky. You can see the stitching. It's not a perfect line, but it's not far off. I mean, we just for a prototype, I then show you this and say, right, we've learnt a bit on this. Is this something that you want to do? So then if I stretch the rest, I'll show you how to stretch. So I'll stretch it all.
You don't need to, but you could maybe just.
Are we going to stretch a canvas?
We are.
Another one. All right.
They do, you know, we don't need to necessarily know how to stretch a canvas. It was more about the internal structure, and I think you've done a nice job of.
Happy with that?
Demonstrating that to us. If you could just hold it up to the camera.
Okay, so these, you know, obviously you want a better. There's a lot of tidying up that can be done here with.
But you can see that the sort of canvas inner collar is going to paint better than it, say, if it was just open wood. I showed Mick one of my paintings that I'm currently working on, you know, and if you've got things like this, which, you know, I want to expose this canvas stretcher, that was done intentionally. But if I didn't want that bit of wood showing, then I would use this technique to neaten this area up, and also it would paint similar to the rest of the canvas that's surrounding it, so it would give a different feel.
That's the best view. Actually, you can see under here that I've trapped it. I should have trimmed these. You can see, you know those.
Oh yeah, the triangles. Yes,
so that
that's
one,
a good point.
this one, has come under here. I must have pulled it through. I wasn't thinking about it. So all I have to do is take this out, lift that open, trim that, or just, in fact, I'll show you. You know, the idea of the temporary staple is that you can just put it straight out, and there it is. So then we can just trim it off like that, and then turn this. Is actually going to give us a much better finish by putting the seam inside.
Oh, that's a good tip.
And there you'll see you've got a better finish. In fact, that edge is now pretty tidy, unlike this one.
Yes.
So that might be where we need to do. So if I just
excellent,
and then trim that out.
And you know, that's something that I would not have thought about myself. So that's a really good. Yeah, that's much better.
And you can see also once I tighten this.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty decent edge, isn't it? So you can see how we can get it. Not so good there.
Just bring it close up to the camera, really close. That's it. Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Mick. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to know was if you took another canvas stretcher and you wanted to apply that to that edge like that, so you ended up with an L shape structure.
Right, and this is, but imagining that is stretched.
So imagine that this is already stretched.
All right, yeah, I've got a canvas on
it. We know how to stretch this canvas onto here.
Yeah.
So we now understand that we cut a piece of material and stretch this canvas. So imagine that this is stretched, and I'm going to nail this to this structure like that. So I end up with an L shape.
Right.
The question I wanted to ask was, if I wanted to canvas stretch over this whole section here, so it ends up being an L-shaped canvas, would I be able to do it without stitching? So that there is a line here or
not? No, what you need to do is cover this, cover this, and bolt them together.
Yeah.
It's because you're always going to have a line. If this was, if this is stretched, like, it's really difficult to explain. Just imagine there's your canvas, yes?
Yeah.
And you want it to be there.
Yeah.
But you want this canvas to go over this as well.
Yeah, I was asking if you could do it in one piece.
Okay. The answer is no, because if you... Stupidly, I've now got to take this out. If you you've got a couple of options. You're either going to have to sew the two to get the right angle. You've either got to sew the canvas because you need excess at the sides to cover it. So if you're going to do that, yes, that's what you're asking, isn't it?
That's what I'm asking, yeah.
So what's going to happen is, if we cut here and here, it's got to be fairly straight to explain. And that goes flat over here, that goes flat over here, and you've got an exposed section.
Yes.
There.
Yeah.
Right? So you could do that, but
Yeah.
then you've either got to sew a piece into here,
Yeah.
right? So that is,
Yeah.
that's an option, or sew two longer pieces of canvas together at this point so that you've got the excess there, and then fold it into the corners. Yeah, that's the only way to do it, but probably the best way to do it is just simply to, you know, if this were a chair, I'd upholster the back and then I'd upholster the seat and then I'd put them together,
Yeah.
because you've already got a line here anyway.
Yeah.
If you somehow need this stretched, you know, like that or something, I don't know. I mean, you would need a structure in there.
Yes.
You can't really,
Yeah.
yeah, you can't, you know, but if you wanted to go, say, down there, do it, you know, there's all sorts of ways to do it, but you would just be always dealing with angles that are not, you know, the cloth is not designed, well, it's not that the cloth's not designed, but the thing itself, upholstery requires, you know, certain techniques that are, you know, depending on the angle that you're trying to cover, the thing that you're trying to cover. You know, doing that is the opposite of doing the outside. Where with the outside we got excess, but on the inside we had less. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that making sense?
Yeah.
So it's the same. So you'd have to bolt them together. That
Yeah.
well, that's what I would do.
So if
Do
you
them separately.
if you did this, take that out again. If you did that
Yeah.
and you did that, is there an option of sewing not a collar but a strip along there?
Yeah,
Is
so-
that a one way of doing it?
Yeah. So you could sew down here and down here.
Yeah, so that the join would be on the edge rather than across
So
here.
what you do is then you have two pieces. So you've got one and the overlap.
Yeah,
So you go, the sew line would be down there and down there.
Yeah.
You'd have one piece here. They're called fly pieces in
Yeah.
upholstery. And one here, so that they would overlap considerably so that you can turn in
yeah.
and then come down usually on the diagonal. Down to the
Okay,
corner.
yeah,
I don't know
okay.
if you can see that on the
Yeah.
film, but down there.
Because the reason why I ask this is because if you imagine that this is on a wall like that, it's displayed on the wall like that, the eye is going to go that way and look at this bit. It's not going to go round the side. It will do eventually.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So if
yeah,
the
if you
join
want
was
join
on the side,
yeah, that's doable.
then that is possible to do that. You just have to put an edge on it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I mean, if it's a bit like with a loose cover.
Yeah.
If you think of a loose cover that slides down over an
Yes.
existing chair,
Yeah.
you can make that kind of structure, and that's how you deal with it at this angle
Yeah.
here. But if you actually want it fixed, you know, I mean, I think the easiest thing to do is that. But,
Yeah,
you know,
it's
because
just
it's a nice
it's
finish.
just
but
about the uninterrupted eye. That's
Yeah,
all
okay.
that is about.
yeah, sure. Well, that's totally doable, but you're going to have to do something down here.
So
yeah.
it's just about dealing with the sides. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're here with Mick Sheridan again, and he's going to show us this time how to turn effectively a 2D empty canvas frame into a 3D surface. So rather than just stretching canvas over, we're going to introduce some foam, 2 different levels, and then stretch the canvas over that, so we end up with a 3D surface.
Well, that's the plan anyway.
That's the
So
plan.
we've got a couple of bits of foam that had remained from. They would have either come out of an old sofa or something. I keep everything and we use it all. Because we're going to put this on top. This is how do I explain this? If you're stretching a canvas straight or any fabric, you know, onto a frame, then pulling the fabric tight is going to give you sort of integrity here. Okay, so that's so you can paint. So it's strong, is what I mean by integrity. Right. As soon as we introduce this, it's going to be soft in the middle, and then pulling it round and tight, this the hole in the frame is going to create a bit of a problem. So at least I think it is anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill that in a way that we would typically do it on a chair seat, which is to put a bit of upholstery webbing into it, so that then when I'm just stapling it. Normally I get all sorts of tools.
What is the webbing made of?
This is jute webbing.
Okay.
In fact, this is just some real old clunky stuff it's been around for ages, but it is used for, this is for seats, so for seat grade. So it goes under, say, dining chairs. We'd weave this, across the gap, and then you sit down on there, and it gives, which makes it comfortable. So I have a webbing stretching tool, so this should be drum tight, but in this case with such a small area it doesn't really matter, so I'm just going to do it by hand and then trim it off. Just catching something there. Again, working really small is not typical. So, and then now when I press down, you can't really see, but it's not coming through. Okay, so I just didn't want it to do that once we come to cover it.
Yeah.
Also, I need to stick this down, I think.
Okay.
Because if I staple it, if this were, again, a seat and I was going to use a stapler, then I would typically, I might curl the edge like so, and then put the staples in there. So if I were...
Okay. So that would be an option if you wanted to create a curved edge on your canvas.
If you want to totally, it would be like a little cushion. So that you go down and then you staple all the way along the edge.
Okay.
But you do see the staple, and it always gives you some kind of. You have to then finish with, if this were a seat and I did that all the way round, you will, as you pull the canvas, say, or whatever fabric over the top. Yeah. You're going to get little imperfections. Okay. So we would finish it in some of this polyester wadding, but a very, very thin one.
Okay.
Dacron it's called. So that just go over the centre, and then that covers up any irregularities. You can see I just snipped this with scissors. It's not exactly perfect, so you've got to try to make it perfect. Yeah. But in this case, quite often with foam, you just glue it to the surface, just to stop it from moving when you're stretching, because if you're stretching over the top and it's doing this, then it's not good. So you need to somehow secure it. So I've got a bit of it's a contact adhesive, so it means it will spray everywhere as well. It won't. That's all right. So what I need to do is spray both sides. I'm sure that.
Is there any other option other than using glue?
Not really. Staple it around the edges. I mean, you don't, because it's such a, you could just try and keep it still and while you're stretching, but it's not going to be easy.
Is there any sort of eco glue that you know of that you can use, like Copydex?
Well, yeah, I'm sure that anything like that for something like this size would be fine. You're just simply trying to keep it still. Yeah, okay. I mean, we use this, I mean, none of this stuff is... foam is not an eco-friendly product at all.
No, and this is why we're recycling it, so that it doesn't go into landfill.
Yeah, well, that's why I don't chuck any of it away. Yeah. Because...
But we've got to think about all of these things, including the glues that we use and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are better glues on the market.
Well, like you said, because it's a small surface, Copydex would probably be okay. Yeah. But on a larger surface, you'd be looking for something that's going to hold and be strong. Copydex probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm making a sofa, this is tried and tested. Yeah. This is an industry standard, so that's why I use it, and obviously I can get it from my supplier, but it's it's a consideration. Yeah. So what I'm going to do then is to try, I'm going to stick that bit on there, and then we're going to try and look at how you would cover something in one piece. That's what you want, is it?
Always in one piece, just because it would
All right,
be more pleasing
I don't
to the
really
eye,
know.
but we'll see.
To be honest, again, it's not something that I do as part of my day-to-day
And you're putting glue on both
jobs.
sides.
Yeah, contact adhesive. You're sticking the glue to the glue.
Yeah, okay.
So that's going to stay roughly where it is now.
Okay.
And then I've got another piece. I fished it out of the bin as you asked me to. Not that I was going to throw it away, you understand. I have to throw some things away. So this came off a chair that I stripped yesterday, and it was a bit too filthy to reuse, but it's ideal for this. So to cover this, I've somehow got to get it round there, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, straight away I don't know the answer to this, because the difficulty, I'm just going to trim some of this away. It's with all the, if I start as if we had a nice clean piece of fabric, it kind of helps to illustrate it, I think.
And also, you know, you're talking about the sides and folds and things like that, and that canvas there is, you know, pretty high grade canvas, isn't it?
This is.
If you were working with something thinner, then the bulkiness of the folds and whatever, they wouldn't cause as much of an issue. But then you've got the issue of the fact that the canvas is thinner over the surface.
I'd always, you know, prefer to work with a heavier cloth. Well, in most applications anyway. So I think we'd have to stick the cloth to the foam, like so. And I think we have to stick it here, 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 and here.
Right.
Right, and then I've got to work out what we do here, because I somehow have to take it round here. The difficult area is here. Okay, so I've got to pleat this somehow, and it's not going to be easy. I'm not quite sure how. I think.
So do you want to stick it, and then we'll come back?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so we have just glued the canvas down onto the surface, and we're trying to, well, Mick is trying to manipulate the canvas into place so that it goes around the corners evenly. Ideally what I would want is that this edge is straight, because I'm looking at this edge as being the most important. So whatever happens here is not as important, but Mick will now explain.
So because you've got two levels, and you're going from, how do I explain this? So you know, we've got to cover these two levels, and then suddenly we've got to go straight onto a flat side. So the problem is, as I was doing it, I pull it down like so, and pull it there, and we've got this area here which is not finishing all that well. It's not too bad, but it's not all that good. So to try and improve that, I took a cut like so. So I just cut up there with the scissors.
Snipped up to that
up
corner
to
there.
And then I pull this slightly over to the right, and then staple that down. And then pull this and staple it, put it over like so. And I'll just put a staple in there. So we've now got this little bit here to manipulate, and you have a fold, and you'll see that if this were a piece of wood, if these were solid, then you would get a much better right angle going over with the canvas, but because the foam is soft, it's curving that edge, and that's important. That's why foam's so useful in upholstery, because you can pull it into shape, pull it tight. And if you're going to sit on it, you actually want that kind of thing. You don't actually want a
hard edge, yeah.
So that's basically what I did. So if I do the same thing here, I just work out that's my point there. So I need to snip into there, and I need to leave maybe there, hopefully, and then pull that down, and then just fold that over, and you get a nice, My phone's making a
It's a noise.
funny
for
noise.
football.
It's telling me there's a football match coming up. Right. And so
You
I think
can
that's
see
pretty
that
clear.
the foam is giving you a softness of edge. So if you wanted a hard edge, then you would have to use timber or
Yeah.
metal
And if you-
or
it-
something that's not going to give in any way. However, for what I want a soft edge. So that's great for me. That outcome is good enough. Just consider what kind of edge you want the finish on.
And you don't want me to show you how to do the edges.
No,
Everyone knows how to do
that's
that.
absolutely fine. So thanks again. That's
very welcome.
really clear, lovely instruction, and you know, we've delved into your brain a little of how to solve coverage issues. Thanks very much, Mick Sheridan Upholstery.